One, two, three. One, two, three. Hello. Are we on the radio? I hope so. Let's see. A 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is Miguel on the radio, and we are live from Warsaw. Very happy to be here. Yes, it's working. This is Miguel on the radio. Today is June 11th. June 11th, a Wednesday afternoon in Warsaw. Very nice to be here. The weather is warm and wet. It's humid. It feels tropical today. I almost feel at home. So good to be here, guys. This is Miguel on the radio. We are live. And today I want to talk about a little bit about myself and about the current events. What's going on? So I've been here for 2 times already. This is my 3rd show. And the first one was an introduction of who I am and more or less my story. And today, the last show was about my current job, what I'm doing here in Warsaw, the struggles, the good things, the bad things. And today I want to talk about where I'm from. I am from far, far away. I don't know if you have ever seen the movie Shrek. I'm from another continent. A lot of people here, they never been to my country. I was born in South America. I was born in Brazil. Brazil being the biggest country in South America. I was born in a city with 20, 30 million people. I grew up there. I was brought up there. My mother is from a small village in the south of Brazil. And she grew up in a coffee farm. Yes, Brazilian coffee. I'm pretty sure you heard about it. So my mother comes from a family of coffee farmers, and Brazil has a lot of good coffee. And my mother's side has Italian roots. So during the Second World War, Brazil welcomed a lot of Europeans. There were projects as well during the First World War where Brazil was open for migration. And they had a program where they gave land to Europeans, Italians, Portuguese. Yeah. And in return, they had to grow a certain crop. So, for instance, they said to a lot of Italians, come to Brazil, we're going to give you a piece of land, and you have to grow coffee, or you have to grow cocoa pot, or you have to grow corn. And that's where my great-grandfather went to Brazil. My great-grandfather was Italian, and he migrated to Brazil in this program. And he started his coffee farm. And there's where my mother comes. She moved to from this small village in the south of Brazil. She moved to São Paulo, this megalopoly, huge city. And there, living this big city, she met my father, who comes from the north of Brazil. He comes also from a very small village where people live in very humble conditions. I remember visiting my father's village as a child, and realizing that the people were living in very basic conditions of health system, education, and public necessities, and everything was there was no sewer system. The water was still getting coming from below the ground, and everything was very basic. Yeah. So my father from this small village in the north, my mother from the small village in the south. They met in São Paulo, and they both very poor, educated somehow. They I think my mother hasn't finished high school. So yeah, my father, I think he finished high school, but both, both very poor educated, and coming from a very simple, humble background. I remember my father had a child when he was 17. That's my half sister, and from a relationship before meeting my mother. So I have, and then he had another child when he was 18. So still on his teens, my father was already with two children in a previous relationship, and I believe it didn't work out. And then after, when he was 22 or something, he met my mother, and then they had me. And they were living in a very like in the city center of São Paulo, but in a very bad neighborhood. São Paulo has these buildings that are constructed as cities. Yeah, I was born in a building that has 27 floors and around 20 apartments per floor. One of this huge building with, I think, 1,000 people living in it. It's just city within a building, like a community and everything. And so I grew up in this environment, and I remember that the street where I was born, it had a very bad reputation, because people were selling drugs everywhere, and there was a lot of prostitution and this violence. So I remember around my 7 to 10 years old, I remember just hearing shots during the night, or people getting shot, people getting killed. If you get in the elevator after a certain hour, you would see a lot of prostitutes going to work, both male and female. And I remember, so yeah, this is more or less the setup that I was brought in. I was going to public school, and I remember that till my kindergarten years, going to school, and then I moved to a very big public school, and education was always, since a very early age, I realized the education system was a little bit broken. I remember in my teenage years going to school and having Portuguese lessons. Yeah, in Brazil we do speak Portuguese, and I remember the teacher every day giving us books to copy. So she said, copy from page 10 to page 15. And throughout the year, we only copy this book from page to page, and then had to write things from the book. And while she gave the book to us to copy, she was just reading novels, and then she was just reading books, and that's pretty much the all year. That's what we did, and I remember realizing that was a little bit strange, and I was not learning much at school, and just realizing that maybe the school system it's a bit broken in Brazil, in São Paulo, in my reality, and then I realized I started to actually find my studying by myself and reading by myself, and also learning languages, and I became self-taught from my teenage years, my early teenage years, because I realized that I could not count on the education system. So today, on my I'm 36, I do speak 6 languages, and I was able to travel the world. But I'm the only member of my family. I come from a very my parents just had me as a kid, but I have a very, very big family with uncles and aunts and cousins and everything. I believe I'm the only one that it's living abroad and speaks more than just one language, or and unfortunately a lot of things are broken in my country. It's a third world country. It's very famous for corruption. It's very famous for good weather, and also very famous for violence and criminality, and it is for a reason. It's all for a reason. Every people ask me. I always meet Europeans, and sometimes they ask me, "Hey Miguel, should I go to Brazil? Should I visit your country? What would you recommend your country to visiting?" And they ask me if it's dangerous, yeah. And I mean, living in this reality, living in Poland today, I have to tell the truth. You know, the truth is, Brazil, it is a country that you need to be aware of all the time. You need to be aware of where you are and who's around you, what time is it, and this kind of things. Yeah, where is your phone? Where is your purse? Where are your belongings? Your wallet? Because it is dangerous. There is criminality everywhere, and unfortunate. I always try to reflect, where does that come from? Why is Brazil so violent? If you compare to other South American countries, or or if you compare to the colony, to Portugal, if you compare to other, why is it that Brazil it became so famous for being dangerous and being a place to be careful, and I believe that after living there, growing up there, unfortunately, I believe violence, it's embedded in the culture. I believe this corruption, it's also embedded in the culture. It's very strong everywhere you go. I believe that there's no conflict resolution, it's always solved by violence. I grew up watching people fight everywhere, if you compare to other dangerous places in the world, where maybe people can pickpocket your cell phone or something. The problem with Brazil is that people would actually come with a gun and try to steal your belongings, and you take the risk of getting shot because of your cell phone, which is just too much. It can be too much. It's too much of a risk. Yeah, so you have to be aware where you are and the clothing that you're wearing. So every time I go to Brazil, I just dress as a homeless person, just to not to be robbed or because of my Italian background, my Italian roots, I look more European. So every time I'm walking around Brazil, even if Brazil it's a big mixture of ethnicities and countries, I still stand out as a person that looks like an outsider. So I'm aware that I don't look much Brazilian, and sometimes that can be a problem. I remember walking around touristic places in Brazil and people thinking that I am indeed, in fact, a foreigner, and even trying to charge me more for things, which it is annoying. So yeah, I do feel like an alien in my own country. I don't feel I belong there very much. That's why I've left Brazil my early 20s. I was lucky enough to be able to find another direction and be able to see the world and experience different cultures and realize that there are a few things that are broken in my home country, and to change that, it's gonna take a long time. Yes. I think Brazil, as many other countries, politically, it's in a loop. It's going around its tail, and the story is repeating itself, and it doesn't move forward in any way. That can be frustrating. Every time I go back to Brazil to visit my family, I'm always scared of getting stuck there somehow, of not being able to leave. And I don't know why. Just I'm just scared of going there and be stuck there forever. I like the weather. I like there are a lot of aspects of the culture that are really unique. I mean, Brazilian music, it's up there. I think there's a lot of good culture. As a comedian, I do appreciate Brazilian comedy. I think it's unique. Music, comedy, sense of humor, and some of the aspects of just being optimistic and being positive towards life. I think are things that I bring with me. I mean, after all, I am Brazilian, and I carry that with me, and I try and I make the effort to carry only the positive things, and I am aware that I represent my country somehow, even if I never carry the flag. I don't consider myself a patriot at all. I see Brazil as a kind of sometimes as a boat that is sinking, that is slowly going underwater, and there's nothing I can do about it. So Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't depend on one person to help the country. I don't think there's much I can do besides kind of bringing awareness to people of what the country is, and maybe someone listens and maybe can change someone's behavior, because yeah, it is a lot of things are said. I think Brazil has a lot of elements and a lot of the conditions to be really paradise, and a lot of people that surprises me all the time. I meet Europeans that they went to Brazil, and for them Brazil is the best country in the world, and doesn't matter what I say, or doesn't matter what happens to them, even if they are in fact a victim of violence, they are robbed in Brazil, or something bad happens to them in Brazil, they still see the country as paradise, as one of the most, or one of the best countries. And yeah, I think everyone has their needs, and everyone is different, and I can also see and acknowledge the positive sides of Brazil as a country. In the end, Brazil is the size of Europe. Yeah, it's not easy to generalize. The south of Brazil, it's more European, with a lot of migration. They have even very very nearby where my mother was born, they have a village that is Polish, and they do speak Polish. A lot of Polish migration in this village, which is fascinating. Brazil has the biggest diaspora of a Japanese community. So yeah, there's a big Japanese community. In fact, I grew up part of a Japanese religion, which is insane, which is crazy. My mother is Catholic, but then I think when I was 5 or 6, my father came across this Japanese thing, almost like a cult, Japanese religion, very similar to Shintoism, and I grew up in this religion, and my father still practices, and he's very into it. It's a very unique thing. I never met someone that grew up in a Japanese religion. Even Japanese people that I met, they don't know much about this religion that I grew up in, which is crazy. And in Brazil, it's quite popular. And also Brazil, I think one of the second or the third, I think the third largest, the biggest religion is an African religion. I think it's called Candomblé, and so there are big African community. I think it's the biggest in the world from African countries. So it's a melting pot of cultures. Yeah, Brazil is the size of Europe. It has so much. Also, it has the biggest Lebanese community outside of Lebanon. So somehow it became home of people from so many different countries that they found Brazil as their home, just like my great grandfather did, and decided to just spend their lives there and raise their kids there, and so it's interesting from my perspective, from my eyes. I don't see it as a home for myself. I don't see it as a place for me to develop. But I understand how and I get fascinated on how so many people found throughout the days, they found their home there, and were able to make it, were able to develop, and that's interesting. That's interesting. I could live in many countries in Europe or in the world with the Italian passport. I think would be easier with the language to live in countries like Portugal. I also speak Spanish. Maybe live in Spain. but somehow I kind of I feel like those countries are not for me. I experienced them. I visited many times. I do what I do like Italy as well to visit, but there's always something that pushes me to Slavic countries somehow. There, I don't know why. For me, I feel myself when I'm in this part of Europe. Even with the weather, even with the things that we know that are not perfect. I mean, I think one thing I've learned after living in so many countries is that there's no such a thing as a perfect country. Yeah, every country has their drawbacks, their issues, their problems, and as I already said, Brazil is really far away from perfection, or far away from being um, a developed place, developed um, nation. I I understand. I understand how the charm. I understand how can some people just fall in love with that place and just stay there forever. With my stand up comedy bit, sometimes I say that a lot of Europeans, they go to Brazil and many never come back, and I let people think a bit why they never come back. Yeah, they never come back because of the culture, because of the weather, because of they find themselves in love with the country, or they don't come back because they get kidnapped. Yeah, and that's and that's a thought. That's a thought that I'll let there. I remember when I was like 19, 20, I already wanted to live by myself, so I moved from São Paulo to the north of Brazil, and I adventured myself alone in this um, place by the ocean. It's beautiful, tropical paradise with beaches everywhere, and really nice weather. And I was working with tourism there, um, and I was able to meet a lot of Europeans that just they went for a 2 week vacation in Brazil, and they just liked so much the place that they opened a coffee shop or a restaurant. I met a lot of Italians at the time that they arrived in this village in the north of Brazil, and they just fell in love with the place. And for the past 20 years, they run a coffee shop there and just go to the beach every day, and it's always summer. There, that's the thing with Brazil. It's summer all year round. Especially if you live in the north, yeah, the it's always good weather. And I'll let that sink for a bit. Imagine a place where it's always good weather. It's always warm. Even if it rains, it's like a shower rain. It's like a warm rain. It's always good weather, and that affects the people absolutely. I think that has a positive effect on people's mood, and the way that people live their lives. And I think the weather has an effect in the culture, and a profound effect in the country. And yeah, I was living in this tropical paradise in when I was 19, and meeting a lot of Europeans, and never have, you know, never went out of the country, just imagining how Europe is as a young boy, as a young teenager, in just talking to people and dreaming about one day seeing the world and visiting countries and tasting their food and everything, and I remember that I was not able to it. I was not able to afford a ticket to leave Brazil. I was not able to actually, you know, pay for me to visit to Europe, but I was happy just talking to the Europeans that were living there, the Italians that opened their restaurants, and having these conversations and being able to understand more or less, even learn a little bit of the language just by talking to them, and my mother didn't speak any Italian at home, so I was just learning by myself a few languages and studying. And when I was 19, my English was already very good. I self-taught. I think I believe I learned English just watching sitcoms and TV, and that's how I learned the language. And the dream of traveling was always there, and after this experience living by myself that did not work, was a disaster. I was bankrupt when I was 19. I was not able to manage my own life. I spent 6 months living there, and then I lost my job and had no money to buy food, so I just went back to live with my parents. And then I found this job when I was 20 something. I found this job in a cruise ship to travel the world, and I already had the English. The job was to work as a waiter for a cruise ship company, and then I tried that and didn't work, and then the job was to work in a room service for a cruise ship company, and I tried that and it didn't work. And then I tried to work as with animation in an entertainment department of a cruise ship, just working with kids and doing animation and treasure hunts and theater plays, and that worked. So after 1 year, almost 2 years waiting to embark, I passed the interviews, and they sent me the ticket. I remember till today. That was in November. I was 21, 22. They've sent me the plane tickets to embark in Italy, in Savona, in this huge cruise ship with thousands of people on board. And I flew to Italy. I've embarked in November, and 26 days later, after I embarked, the cruise ship was back in Brazil. So I remember that there was a law at the time that for the cruise ship to be in South American waters, for the cruise ship to be able to enter the Brazilian coast, it had to have a big percentage of the crew Brazilian. So that helped me get my job. So they had to have a lot of Brazilians on board. So that's why they hired me, and they sent me a ticket to go to Italy to do the transatlantic. So I crossed all the way from Savona. We went to Spain, and then we went to the Canary Islands, And I remember there was 5 days of navigation where you cannot see any piece of land. And after 5 days of just sea, you arrive in this island in Brazil, and you see the first land. And I remember that I did 4 months in the Brazilian coast where we had a lot of Brazilian guests, and also we went to Argentina, Uruguay with the cruise ship, and I was able to learn Spanish, which is very similar to Portuguese, but they are not the same language. They have grammar is different, and I was able to actually learn Spanish on board. A lot of Brazilians, they think they speak Spanish because the languages are so similar, but then you end up speaking Portuñol, which is a mixture of the two languages. And so I did learn Spanish with Argentinians. So when I speak Spanish today, I do speak with the Argentinian accent, and I was able to learn a lot of languages on board because we had people from all over the world, and I was working on board every day for 8 to 10 months. So when you have a job in a cruise ship, you don't have a day off. You work every day. Maybe some days you work 6 hours, some days you work 12 hours, but you do work every day. There are no days off in a cruise ship, yeah? So, yeah, at the time, for sure, if I look back, it was worth it. It was a very good experience for a young man like myself that wanted to explore the world and find out what the world is about. I did learn a lot. So not just Spanish, then I learned Italian after. I learned enough Italian to be able to go to Italy by myself and do my Italian citizenship. So every penny, all the money that I've saved from the cruise ship company, I've used to do my passport, to do my citizenship. So yeah, working every day for 10 months with kids and doing flash mobs and theater plays and dancing and games and everything was intense. Was interesting because when I was not working, I was able to visit the places. So I visited all the Mediterranean. I also went to, of course, South America and the north of Europe, Norway and the Baltic. I went to St. Petersburg. I visited Tallinn and Helsinki. And so exploring places, meeting people, learning languages, and also exploring the artistic side that I have that was always there, and I was able to develop a lot during the cruise ship years. And I worked for this cruise ship company for 3 years, and I was able to get my Italian citizenship with the money that I've saved there, and since I got this passport, I've never went back to live in Brazil. I just went to visit my parents, but never really I never see myself living there anymore or calling that home. A lot of maybe family members that they try to live abroad and they save some money. They always went back to Brazil and they maybe invested in Brazil in a piece of land or something. I never see myself like investing in a piece of land in Brazil and just moving back there because that's not really where I see myself, where I see myself in the future. Yeah. A lot of good things came out of this experience. So this cruise ship was my ticket out of my country, of my reality. It gave me the tools to keep moving forward and developing myself. It was almost like a university. I see this this experience in the cruise ship as a university experience, as a teaching of some sorts, like what the world is about, and then it gave me the tools to move forward. And then my father, he also always worked as a salesperson, so I've always had this sales thing in my DNA somehow. So throughout the years, I've always mixed working as a salesperson or working, with more of an artistic side, and entertainment departments of resorts and things, with tourism. So throughout the years, I think if I resume my professional career, it was always surrounded by either an artistic entertainment side with this sales and business side. It was always there. Of course, the languages as well as a plus to tourism. And I'm living in so many countries with those skills. There's so much you can do, I think, and I use these skills in my current artistic career here in Warsaw. I do use what I've learned in the cruise ship, what I've learned in my years with selling things, and so yeah, there's to create an event, to market it, to host an event, and also to make people laugh. Everything that I've learned in those early years, I think it makes the professional I am today. And that's the story of how I was brought up. That's the story of my background in this bad neighborhood in São Paulo, in Brazil, growing up with this violence and drugs and people getting shot everywhere, in a public school that I basically learned nothing. With this really, not ideal background. I don't think, looking back, I don't think that was an environment for a child. And if I ever have a child, if I ever have kids, I'm sure don't want them to go anywhere near where I came from. So those conditions and those situations, but finding somehow a way out. So that's the message that I want to give today. I think there's always a way out. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter how trapped you feel. There's a way out, and there's a place for you out there. Maybe you are in an environment where people don't appreciate you, where you cannot expand your horizons, where you cannot learn much. There's always, if you look through the cracks, there's always an option and a way out of that, and there's a place for you out there. We just have to see. Just have to see the possibilities, and then you find the way out. You find your place. You find your people, and that's the message of today. This is what I want to share with you all. Thank you so much for listening. This was Miguel on the radio, without any songs today, but I'm gonna bring a cool playlist next time I just have to find a pen drive that works. I'm gonna prepare some songs, maybe some Brazilian songs. I want to bring my favorite Brazilian songs on the next show. What day is today? Today is the 11th. I believe the next show is next Wednesday. Yes. So I hope to see you guys next Wednesday at 5 o'clock with Miguel on the radio, talking about, I don't know, maybe I'm going to have a guest. The show is a surprise. We are building something. I love being here, and we never know. Never know what's going to happen. Maybe I hope to make this show better each week. Bring some guests and have some surprises. I hope if you're listening to me, I hope you're enjoying. I hope you had there was a good story, and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great day, all the way from Warsaw, Poland. On the 11th of June, I'll give you a goodbye. Thank you for listening, and have a great day. Ciao, ciao.